This is Mrs. O'Neill for Chapter 1, Section 1, Introduction to Chemistry. So we're first going to do some vocabulary. Why? Well, chemistry is like learning a new language. A lot of these words are going to be brand new. You've never heard of them. You've never seen them before. So one thing I like to do is actually repeat silently after me. So obviously, if you're in your house and you're doing this on your own, you can say them out loud. But if you're in class, I want you to kind of whisper or say them under your breath after me, because sometimes just looking at them and trying to figure out how to say them doesn't cut it. So, 1, analytical chemistry, biochemistry, chemistry, inorganic chemistry, matter, organic chemistry, physical chemistry. So that's for chapter 1. However, we're also going to be doing chapter 2. So yes, it seems like a lot of vocabulary, but a lot of this stuff is actually relatively easy and or you've seen before. So again, repeat silently after me, or at least repeat it in your head, or you can say it out loud if you're at home. Chemical change, chemical property, chemical reaction, chemical symbol, compound, element, extensive property, gas, group, heterogeneous mixture. Some people say this homogeneous mixture. I like to say homogeneous mixture. Intensive property, law of conservation of mass, liquid, mass, mixture, period, periodic table, phase, physical change, physical property, precipitate, product, reactant, solid, solution, substance, vapor, volume. So just as a reminder, chapter 1 words, okay, there's only going to be a short section from that, just this section 1.1, and then we're also going to do chapter 2. Why am I asking you to do this? Well, first of all, you're going to watch the rest of the video to write down your notes. Then you're going to define the terms by, there's different ways that you can look up the words. What I strongly suggest, is really looking through the chapter. So at some point during the next few days, you're going to have an opportunity in class to do some bookwork and to look up these vocab words. I strongly suggest looking actually through the chapter and getting the definitions that way, because not only do they give you the definition, but then that also gives you an opportunity to kind of read maybe a sentence before it or a sentence after it to get maybe a better explanation. You can also go to a glossary. I suggest the one in the back of the book, because these are going to be the definitions that are given the science aspect. So some of these words maybe have multiple meanings, and if you look online like at Google and just look them up, that first definition that comes up might not be the chemistry related one, but there is a reference section in the back of your book starting on page R118, so you can just go back there. Why are we doing this? Well, first of all, like I said, this is a foreign language to some people because of the new terminology, as well as you're going to have a vocab quiz in the future. It's going to be matching, and the words are going to be in the same order as they are in your on your list. However, obviously, you're not going to have all. In this case, I think there's like 30 or plus more words. It's going to be a sample of that. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you which words they are, but there's going to be a sample of those words. Now, this is probably going to be your biggest chapter of definitions. They're not going to be as lengthy, but like I said, it's because we're kind of combining two sections, two chapters. So this is section 1.1, the scope of chemistry. Again, it tells you to read pages 2 to 3. Again, when you're doing the bookwork, you might want to peruse that. So your objectives for this section is to explain the term chemistry, really what it means, and identify the 5 traditional areas of study in chemistry. So the Galileo spacecraft was placed in orbit around Jupiter to collect data about the planet and its moons. Instruments aboard Galileo analyzed the atmosphere of the moon low. They found large amounts of sulfur and sulfur dioxide. These chemicals are usually released when volcanoes erupt on Earth. So the presence of these chemicals verified that the volcanoes on low surface are active. Chemistry helped scientists to study the geology of a distant object in the solar system. In this section, you will learn about chemistry in general and ways you can use your knowledge of chemistry. So now I ask you to pause the video, fill in the blanks, and then play to hear my words. I also strongly suggest you read as you write. So not only are you going to fill in the blank, but you're going to read that sentence, and then you're going to play the rest of the video. So the definition of science to me is knowing and understand the universe we live in, right? So science is everything. However, chemistry, again, you're pausing, writing in the blanks, reading as you're writing, and then play to finish the video as well as listen to my words. Chemistry is just an aspect of science. So what's so special about chemistry? Well, we're going to study matter, and matter is everything. So what is matter? Anything that has mass and occupies space. Ladies and gentlemen, that's everything. But there's three parts of matter that chemistry studies in depth. Its composition, meaning what it's made of. Its structure, meaning how it's going to be put together. And its behavior. How does it interact with other things? So let's look at water as an example. So can you come up with its composition, its structure, and its behavior? Just think about that. Pause the video and think about how am I going to say what it's made of, composition, how water is put together, that would be the structure, and how it interacts with other things. So did you come up with its composition is really 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. It's the composition, it's what it's made of. So now is the structure. Most of you probably thought the composition and the structure are very similar. It's 2 hydrogen atoms attached to 1 oxygen atom. That's its structure. That's how the composition, those 2 hydrogen atoms and that 1 oxygen atoms, is really put together. So the composition tells us one thing. The structure really tells us more about its behavior. And something you might have come up with is that it's reactive with only group 1 elements. I shouldn't say only, but it's very reactive with group 1 elements. It's also what's considered a universal indicator, and water is all around us. So how does it interact or behave around things? So there are 5 branches of chemistry. So these are the branches. Those should look familiar since those are some of the vocab words we just talked about. And this is what they study. So you have science. You have multiple branches of science, and now you have 5 branches of chemistry. And these 5 branches of chemistry, again, go in depth with different things. And so these are the different things that it studies. So let's look at some examples. For organic chemistry is defined as the study of chemicals that contain carbon. So again, if you're dealing with something like an inhaler, that inhaler has chemicals in it, drugs, and those drugs usually are organic compounds. And that's why we say that organic chemistry is going to study multiple chemicals, anything that contains the element carbon. For inorganic is the study of chemicals that in general don't contain carbon. However, not all inorganic compound, I should say not, there still might be some inorganic compounds that will contain carbon, something like carbon dioxide. Okay, so even though that's considered organic and inorganic because it has carbon dioxide is that gas. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about the knees and what it has. The bones. So chemists study structures and possesses in human body. So in other words, does a bone contain mainly organic or inorganic compounds? Well, it's going to contain what mostly element, right? Bones have what element? Calcium. So that's why we say that our bones are mostly inorganic because it contains mostly calcium. Oh, so then the answer is inorganic, right? So how about biochemistry is the study of processes that take place in organisms. So here again, showing you the muscle. Okay, so biochemistry, think about organisms. Analytical chemistry is the area of study that focuses on the composition. So when they're taking your blood and they're studying things of that nature, they're studying what's inside that blood, how much iron is in your blood, so you can tell if you're anemic or not. And physical chemistry deals with the mechanisms and the rate, energy transfers that occurs when matter undergoes change. So for physical chemistry, I like to remember energy, okay? Physical is the energy, how things move. So a short quiz, see how much you remember just from writing in those notes. Pause, see if you can come up with an answer. Hopefully you got 1 and 2. And at this point, if this doesn't make sense, you can either rewind, look back in your notes, or ask me questions in class. So remember to go back and make sure to look at those vocab words and define those terms. Again, looking through the chapter or going through the glossary. And the reason is twofold. Number one is because this is a somewhat of a foreign language. So I want to make sure you're understanding the terminologies that I'm going to use and you're going to use in class. And of course, there's going to be that quiz in the future. So see you in class.